ever since the impeachment inquiry began.
No quid pro quo.
There's no quid pro quo.
There's no quid pro quo.
President Trump has repeated the same phrase like a mantra. But today on Capitol Hill,
was there a quid pro quo? The answer is yes.
a different story from the man the president tapped to work alongside his attorney, Rudy Giuliani.
We did not want to work with Mr. Giuliani. Simply put, we were playing the hand we were dealt.
Overseeing Trump's Ukraine policy.
Mr. Giuliani's requests were a quid pro quo for arranging a White House visit for President Zelensky. Mr. Giuliani demanded that Ukraine make a public statement announcing the investigations of the 2016 election, DNC server, and Burisma. Mr. Giuliani was expressing the desires of the President of the United States.
What Gordon Sondland did is, for the first time, bring the impeachment inquiry directly into the White House with a witness who can testify to what President Trump said and did, and it was riveting.
Ambassador Sondland not only admitted there was a quid pro quo,
Everyone was in the loop. It was no secret.
he named names.
Many people.
And, well, Secretary Pompeo?
Yes.
And Acting Chief of Staff Mulvaney?
Yes.
Sondland said he was concerned military aid and a coveted White House visit were being held up until Ukraine publicly announced an investigation into the Bidens and the 2016 election. He said he reported his concerns about the aid personally to Vice President Mike Pence.
And Vice President Pence just nodded his head?
I don't recall any exchange or where he asked me any questions. I think it was sort of a duly noted.
Well, he didn't say, Gordon, what are you talking about?
No, he did not.
He didn't say, what investigations?
He did not.
That brought swift denials today from the Vice President's office, the Secretary of State, and the White House. Sondland cannot be dismissed as a never-Trumper. He's a lifelong Republican who donated about $1 million to President Trump's inaugural committee.
He is a hard-edged business guy in the hotel business, very successful, very smart, but not somebody who spent his life in diplomacy, and certainly not someone who spent his life as a witness.
I was surprised by kind of how comfortable and nonplussed he appeared while delivering what a lot of people are seeing as really bombshell after bombshell. What I would think is kind of surprising is that he didn't sweat more.
The suggestion that we were engaged in some irregular or rogue diplomacy is absolutely false.
Sondland says it was clear to him who was calling the shots.
Ambassador Volker and I worked with Mr. Rudy Giuliani on Ukraine matters at the express direction of the President of the United States. I followed the directions of the President. When the President says, talk to my personal lawyer, Mr. Giuliani, we followed his direction.
But he was fuzzy on some of the details.
I don't recall. I honestly don't remember.
Sondland blamed his faulty memory on two things. One personal.
I'm not a note taker or a memo writer. Never have been.
The other thing he blamed was the Trump administration's decision to stonewall the investigation. As a result, Sondland said, he couldn't refer back to his email, schedule, and other items.
My lawyers and I have made multiple requests to the State Department and the White House for these materials. In the absence of these materials, my memory, admittedly, has not been perfect.
There was one interaction about which Sondland was crystal clear. The phone call he had with the president on or about September 9th. That's after the White House was already well aware of the whistleblower complaint.
Whether it was the 9th or the 8th, you had this call. It was extremely memorable, right?
It was.
In that call, Sondland was following up on concerns raised by Ambassador Bill Taylor.
As I said on the phone, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign.
Sondland testified today that he did reach out to the president.
I believe I just asked him an open-ended question, Mr. Chairman. What do you want from Ukraine? I keep hearing all these different ideas and theories and this and that. What do you want? And it was a very short, abrupt conversation. He was not in a good mood. And he just said, I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky to do the right thing. Something to that effect.
President Trump seized on that one soundbite.
I just noticed one thing, and I would say that means it's all over.
Trump scrawled it out with a Sharpie to make sure he got it just right.
And now, here's my response that he just gave. Ready? You have the cameras rolling? I want nothing. That's what I want from Ukraine. That's what I said. I want nothing. I said it twice.
That's a big point for the president. Now, it came after the White House knew there was a whistleblower complaint about that July 25th call with the president of Ukraine. So Donald Trump might have been covering his tracks in that phone call, since he already knew there were people who were blowing the whistle.
Privately, White House officials acknowledged that Ambassador Sondland's testimony raised problems for the president's case. I'm told the president himself watched. He was tense as he watched.
From a substantive point of view, the winner today were the Democrats, but they were also the losers today because the Republicans poked holes in Sondland's testimony that may blunt some of the power of his words.
One significant issue where Republicans raised doubts was whether the $400 million in military aid was part of the quid pro quo.
It became your clear understanding that the military assistance was also being withheld pending Zelensky announcing these investigations, correct?
That was my presumption.
Sondland admitted the president never said so explicitly.
I don't recall President Trump ever talking to me about any security assistance, ever.
So is this kind of a 2 + 2 = 4 conclusion that you reached?
Pretty much.
Republicans pounced.
No one on this planet told you that President Trump was tying aid to investigations, yes or no?
Yes.
So you really have no testimony today that ties President Trump to a scheme to withhold aid from Ukraine in exchange for these investigations?
Other than my own presumption.
Which is nothing.
Now, my colleagues seem to think unless the president says the magic words, I hereby bribe the Ukrainians, that there's no evidence of bribery or other high crimes or misdemeanors.
Today's impeachment drama easily overshadowed what would otherwise be a big political story: the Democratic presidential contenders' debate in Georgia. The impeachment process led tonight's discussion.
I have made it very clear that this is impeachable conduct. We have a criminal living in the White House.
Senator Warren taking direct aim at Ambassador Sondland.
This is not a man who had any qualifications except one. He wrote a check for $1 million.
Former Vice President Biden, a subject of today's hearings.
Donald Trump doesn't want me to be the nominee. That's pretty clear.
But mostly, the Democrats looked ahead to the issues.
We can deal with Trump's corruption, but we also have to stand up for the working families of this country.
Some Georgia voters told us that's as it should be.
My interest is things like student loan debt, health care access, police brutality.
Of course, as a student, loan forgiveness.
There's work in either city.
In Atlanta, where the population is more than 50% African American, we went to a watch party with voters, sponsored by two predominantly black voters' rights groups. Some voters do care about those impeachment hearings.
Think about it. If you have no respect for the law, that's the Constitution. You just have no respect for the law, period.
Tomorrow in Washington, one more day of public hearings before the committee begins to move this process along.
Have they proved quid pro quo at this point?
I think the Democrats have made a very powerful case, but should this be grounds to remove the president from office? That's a separate question.
And be sure to tune in to continuing coverage of the impeachment hearings tomorrow morning, right here on ABC.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.